Did you ever go to El Paso?
Texas?
Yeah, but never
Been through it.
Okay, but
I know that's where you're from.
That's for sure where I'm from, and they used to have stuff called Chico's tacos, like the little taquitos, and I'd get a whole freezer full of them all frozen and bring them back. But today, in today's airlines, it wouldn't be near that easy. I used to go out there with I had a big cooler. I say a big cooler. I don't know how much, but I would go out there with a sleeping bag and stuff packed in the cooler to get there, and then I would UPS all my clothes back and leave me an empty cooler to fill up with Chico's tacos.
Oh yeah.
Chico's, huh?
Chico's tacos. That was the
guy who made them?
Yeah, it was not a brand name, but it was a family that had been in El Paso, and they had like 4 or 5 stores, and they do, I mean, a tremendous business. You cannot even imagine how much stuff.
Are they still around or not?
Yeah, yes, for sure. Yeah. I mean, like, yes, you could see them.
In Des Moines, we have Tasty Tacos, it's called, and they're authentic. They have like flower shape.
You are from Des Moines, basically.
Just north of Knoxville.
Okay, because when I went to Knoxville, the only 2 times I ever went, both times, once when I ran for Ben and once when I ran for Swofford, where we were discussing.
Yeah.
I flew there, and I just wound up in Knoxville, and all I really knew, and I still don't even know it, just to prepare the motel out to the deal. I never got to tour around or do anything, cruise around in Knoxville at all. I never had a vehicle at that time.
I didn't so much want to talk to you about Knoxville, but did you ever run the race of states or one of those races too?
You know, I ran. It was. I'm trying to think what they would call it. The year I went there in '85 with Ben Cookadam, I ran. It wasn't the race of the state. I'm not sure. I believe they called it the mystery feature because different people from different venues were invited to the dealer or put in either from Pennsylvania or whatever. But I remember drawing like dead last or a real bad number. Yeah. So we, as in Ben Cook and those guys, we talked it over and decided to just start the race and back off and run a couple laps to see how it raced. And I remember starting in the back and letting it clear out and then coming up pretty good and easy, but not finishing it, not even trying to finish it. I mean, that was because at that time we were about to be. We were already set for sitting in the feature. I guess we were probably
got one car and everything. You know.
We were locked into. Had to have been 12th position. That's what I would imagine.
When you came up here, 71 or was it before
71?
Yeah.
We came from Texas. My brother and I both. He had come up here 1 notch ahead of me. I would have never been able to come up here had it not been for him. Hell, I had a Corvette and a race car on a two-wheel trailer, and I just drove up here and wherever he parked, I parked. I mean, he had the tools, he had, all that stuff would have been possible. I certainly would have never moved to Pennsylvania from Texas, right? Outside the fact that the racing was where, this is where the race.
Your brother was coming.
And my brother had come up here.
How much older was he then?
2 years.
So he had some equipment.
But he was more equipped. He had a pickup and fuel cans and tools and jacks, and he had a trailer that would haul a couple of rows of tires, and so he was definitely more prepared to go out and race. He did quite a bit more racing himself out in Ohio. There was a lot of Wednesday shows in Ohio that cars from Pennsylvania would go back to. Sure. I mean, like for sure, at that time, the Pennsylvania cars, as in Bobby Allen or Stevie or Jan, they would go to Western Ohio or go wherever, and they would just dominate totally, because they just did.
Yeah. So did Dub, how much racing do you guys do down around Texas before that? Did you do much? Or?
We raced at a place called Horizon Speedway in El Paso. This was before the racetrack that they race on in El Paso now, before it existed. But in 69, 68, 69, right around there, Dubby ran, and he was the track champion at whatever we were at, whatever Horizon Speedway or whatever. But he was more well equipped. He had a a pretty state-of-the-art Don Edwards car at that time. I mean, it was not junk. Actually, when he came to Pennsylvania, it was kind of outdated. You know, the cars were 4 bars and various things, and but we had that, and I had an old. They called it a super modified. I got some, but we still cut stuff. We had raced a couple of years of, like I say, he was with him. It was a sprint car. With me, it was a modified, but they were wingless. We didn't have a wing, but basically the same thing. When we had fuel injected Chevys, I mean, like the modifieds were just they had more of a top on them.
That's kind of what we had up around Knoxville too, a little bit.
Yeah.
Back in those days, we get supermods from, talking about coming in for the Nationals, you get supermods from Michigan that were,
look so different.
yeah. And then the cars from Texas that look a little different.
Well, it's funny, and I don't know if it's just because of you always seem to like what you were used to, but to me, some of those Texas, Oklahoma super modifieds just had a nicer looking look. Then, like they had to have been basically the same cars, like up back here they called them bugs or whatever. They were just cut down and everything. But to me, the Texas super modifieds, they had a flare to the cage and a flare to the window working like that. Maybe just something I got used to. But do you remember the car? You had to have seen it almost in a book. The Twister. It was an Arizona car. Yeah. It was really pretty super modified. That was like the ideal. That was like the gambler looking.
Right.
That was the prime car of that era.
Right. You could always tell where cars came from. Well, they came from California.
You're saying as you watch it from the Knoxville bit. Yeah.
Right. You could always tell where guys were coming from.
Well, it's funny.
Kind of miss that a little bit.
I went to Thanksgiving night racing in Ascot.
Turkey night?
The turkey night. I went to the turkey night back in with a midget that I had from around here that I ran very competitive around here.
A lot of people don't remember that you won quite a few midget shows around here.
I for sure did. But I won easily or broke something, but generally it was easy enough to. But anyhow, I took the midget that I ran here. I'm pretty sure at that point it had a Datsun in it. But we went out to the Turkey Bowl, and there was, maybe 75 in front of 100. In fact, when it was still at Ascot, and I remember how our car looked so distinctively farmerish looking, compared to, you can imagine how cool the cars would have looked right in downtown California. I mean, like the chrome and stuff. But it was without a wing. We had run with a wing most of the time, but it was without a wing. And I remember being medium fast, like fast enough to be in the feature, starting, like 10th, 12th, somewhere middle of the pack of the main race. And Poncho car. Okay, I'm trying to think. There was 2 brothers, Danny and Jimmy Carruthers, that was real fast right there.
Yeah.
One of the Carruthers guys got in there and got tied with it. Used up my whole experience was just like used up. I was in the feature with what they considered kind of an ugly car, but still very competitive.
Right.
But whatever, I don't. It wasn't a good result because I got crashed out. Maybe through my own fault. I don't think so, but regardless. But used to the midgets here, it's like the ARDC guys and stuff that we were running, they were just running like it was like a hobby switch. It'd be like watching Raymer go in there and run against, but whatever. They were just, and it was easy. It was easy to just take a car and go from the front to the back in a lap. Sometimes it was so decisive.
Oh yeah.
But just because it was. Not all results were good, but it was all.
Like Steve Kinder for one.
Yeah. But I guess Raymer, and I'm not saying it for Raymer, I guess he must just used up too much to get to the front.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. Well, he did. His tire was blistered, and he just drove through from 8th. I mean, I was thinking about the whole thing, and to me, I respect Jeff Shepard. Anytime you race Raymer for money and wind up ahead of him for money, you did good.
Yeah.
But I suspect, when Raymer came through there from 8th, you could tell he was ready. He was green. He's fun to watch.
He is. That was a good. Ended up being a good track.
Good feature, I think.
Yeah, real good feature.
Anybody complain about that? It wasn't dusty. It wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't on the bottom.
Yeah, you're lucky you get to watch him quite a bit.
Yeah, that's
I don't
true.
think people realize that.
I'm lucky in a way. I mean, just sure getting to watch all of the racing around here on a weekly basis, and not even. I mean, I'm aware that there's other good racing weekly all the time, and you know, it's funny because you always hear the Posse versus the world, and I get so tired of the people that get in there, and they're so ignorant about things.
Right.
And, you know, but
anyway, probably the two stories that are you have to tell the most are probably the win on 3 wheels, right? That's one of them.
I could narrow that down, but I've chose just to kind of listen to it. Well,
what's the real truth on that?
Well, a guy. Well, this is what I'm saying about not. There was a guy. I was at Maple Grove at the drag races one time, and this guy, he had seen the race or seen the tape or something or whatever. He had his mind made up that I won this race on 2 wheels or won the deal, I mean, whatever. I mean, many people say he won the race. Well, ultimately I didn't, but whatever. And I told him, and I kind of squared it away, and I told him, like, nah, this really happened, that happened, everything. And this guy was so deflated looking, like he was very happy when he started talking to me because of what he had imagined or what he had built up. And when I told him the story, and I thought, man, I'm not ever gonna do that again. I'm just gonna let it be. But the truth is, the total truth and reality of that whole deal was, and I believe this to be true, it was a concert, and I had a front wheel that had a pressure plate. Remember some of those Halbrand wheels that used to have pressure plates kind of built into them?
Right.
It wasn't just a Anyhow, it had a pressure plate built into it, and the taper wasn't exactly right to the taper. But the end of the story, it's left. But the wheel came off, but it was the consi, and it was the left front wheel, and I was leading it, and so it was easy to run at my own pace. I didn't have to slam the thing down. I went down there and I let off.
You were at Lincoln just going.
No, this is a wheel stroke. I believe for sure wheel. It depends on which story it is, whatever.
All right.
This is that wheel stroke. And I would let off easy when I was leading the race, and I was being easy. And this is what I think happened. Finally, the left front brake exploded. I mean, the disc finally dug in enough to explode. And knocked on my brake, and I believe that the end of the deal was that it was in the consi and that I was far enough along into the race that I was in a qualified position. And so I believe that the race that I won, I actually just qualified. I qualified for the feature, so I won the race in the fact that I qualified for the feature. But that's the truth of the story on the 3 wheels. I mean, they can make it out.
Everybody just goes off on that, don't they?
And like I say, I mean, if you hear somebody tell it, that the race I won on 3 wheels, just let it go. You know, so far. Yeah. But anyhow, that deal after Maple Grove, after telling the guy, and he was all, I thought, man, that's too. You know, if they tell a story that's anywhere near close, then I just yeah, that was a good night, or that was a good day, or something.
One thing where the picture doesn't lie is that Syracuse wreck.
Yes, but you know, it's funny because that Syracuse wreck, I was totally lucky. I mean, if you believe in God or don't believe in God, whatever, I was totally, it was beyond my control. I didn't get hurt in that car.
Right.
And shit did fly. Stuff did fly. But anyhow, I didn't actually get hurt in that wreck at all. I mean, within an hour, we were sitting there with a car loaded up on a trailer, drinking beer, thinking, man, that could have been such and such. And I believe that could have been better. But the end result of that thing, where the picture was there, and there was nothing but me, I could have got smeared just as, you know, one revolution, half difference, or, you know, anything to that. But didn't. But it happened. And if people want to see what happened to Syracuse, that was evidence.
That'll cause you to go to church. That would cause me to go to church, probably.
No. I believe in God enough to know that I don't believe that it was my turn.
Right.
I don't believe a guy can be tough enough to survive a bad enough wreck. I think they have to be lucky. I think that a sprint car today, even though it's quite a bit faster. I think the first part of the day is a safer module than I used to be in.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we had seats, and we had wraparound aluminum seats that were fair, but
cut off at the shoulder.
yeah, I mean, like up under the armpit, because when you
Break the shoulder blade.
crash, man, yes, I remember very deal.
Yeah, you probably had some crashes where you got hurt pretty good. Well, first, but that picture lived on.
Somebody sent me, and I don't know, it's Jack's photos or something, but they sent me it's black and white, but it's 11 picture sequence of that thing happening.
Oh,
You can just see as the car starts to crash, you can see stuff like the fuel cell and the bumper. You can just see the stuff that's in this assembling on. But that was lucky. I mean, that was totally lucky. And the fact that that happened in Syracuse, in front of probably 50,000 people, 30,000 people, whatever, a lot of people could get to retell the story. And I believe, well, I mean, there's no question about it, it was an open wheel. Like the very, very, very first edition of open wheel.
yeah. That's big, too. Now, the Grove Open you won, that was 100 lap, wasn't it? Was that 77?
It was 77 that I won it, but it was 150. It was the last 150. The next year, they dropped it down to 100, and then I believe the next year down to 75, and then down to 40. When it got to become an outlaw sanctioned deal, which would have been 78, 79, whatever, right around in that area, they didn't want to run more than the 40 laps that they ran on a normal deal.
Right.
So they got to dictate some of the things that were happening around here. Is what I see.
Yeah.
I mean, for sure, that's what took place. So I'd say the Outlaws became existent in 78. I won in 77. So if the next year, I don't believe the next year's Open was sanctioned by the Outlaws, because I'm sure it wasn't. But I'd say that in 78,
any race that was over 2,000
money, yeah.
But you must have been running pretty well that year. 77.
Which time?
77.
77, I was running pretty good, and I had slick down pretty good. I mean, I had daytime, it wound up my daytime show. And I had the deal that, for whatever reason, it worked, was pretty good when it was sticky. I mean, pretty good when it was slick. Because that race that I won, actually I didn't even qualify for. I had to run it, I had to get into the contest. I mean, I had to pass cars all day long. I mean, I had to start effectively, I would say, whatever the first guy, I won the B main, what they call it.
Right.
And so I would say I probably started 24th, 22nd, somewhere there. But I believe that they had it. I believe they had it in 3 50-lap segments. And let me think about this a minute, but I believe it was 3 50-lap segments because I remember having. Do you remember Firestones? Do you remember 6s and 9s and various things? I had one earlier in the year, or earlier, with like a Firestone 6, a real hard tire, and I went to the races planning on running one new tire in the last part, if it worked. And I remember using a used, whatever it was, for the first 100 laps, not jump used, but I remember using one new right here 6 that finished up the deal, and I was faster than they were. I mean, and I was lucky that it happened because I passed Jimmy Edwards. He was running, and I passed him. And then when some sort of yellow came out or something, then we were about to have a restart, and he dropped out. So I mean, I was lucky the fact that I didn't have to say, well, yeah, he dropped out and I won. But at the end of the deal, I passed everybody.
That was in front of you.
Whoever was in front of me, yeah.
So you ended up putting the new one on for the last third.
The last third, yeah. But we went through basically a daytime. I mean, let me think about it. I had to run 170 laps that day, and I ran 2 right rears.
There were guys there who probably changed. I mean, they put new tires on
I would say there were guys that probably changed every 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that was what they consider to be, you know, that biggest end racing of the year. I mean, and it was kind of neat to me. I mean, if you think back about, I mean, if I think back about what I've ever won and what I've not, it's neat the fact that it was the Williams Grove National Open, even though it was just another race.
That was with Sterner, wasn't it? Yeah.
Actually, it was before Sterner. Sterner bought it was my car.
Oh, okay.
It was my car everything about it was mine. And then Sterner bought my car, and then when he bought it, then we put more new stuff.
So previous to that?
Previous to Sterner,
you raised most of your own stuff?
Well, no, I came up here with my own stuff and ran a little bit, and then I got a ride in a car that was only fair, but I ran it for a little bit, and I built a frame like my brother. I built a frame, and I used to go back and forth to Texas for the winter because my home was there. And I built a frame, and I left it here with these guys, the mechanics and the owners and all that stuff. Say, okay, so you put this frame in your car. I mean, it was for them. And they all feuded everything, and when I got back to start the next season, it was just my frame exactly like I left it, just exactly like I left it. And I talked Buddy Dyer, that's the Brickmobile.
Right.
I talked him into letting me have the components out of one of his old cars that I had driven. I'd driven once on a daytime show for him, but I talked him into letting me have the components, and I built the car, and then it was just kind of like trying to decide how I wound up with ownership of it. I mean, although I built the car, I'm trying to decide how I wound up with ownership of the whole pile. But anyhow, the year I won Williams Grove, it was my car to fix or to whatever. It was mine. I mean, I built it, and I was responsible. I mean, it paid $3,000 to win, but it was all mine.
Who was driving for Dyer back then? Was it
Jimmy Edwards.
Jimmy was?
Yes. I had driven Dyer's car once when Jimmy Edwards was in South Africa, and he hadn't got back yet. And I drove Dyer's car and actually went real fast, passed a lot of cars, and I think the end of the story got upside down or whatever. But Dyer and I got along well, and I talked him into letting me have those components to build a car. Dyer's car. And I'm trying to think when Benchoff got involved. Bob Benchoff was the sponsor for so right after, okay. Basically,
the number was 69.
The number was 69 for sure. But I'm trying to decide, okay, I ran it with, that's what it was. I ran it with Dyer's components, old freighter steering and everything. And Benchoff, this was before 77, this would have been like 73 or 74, something like that. And Benchoff bought the car from Dyer for whatever the amount was that we decided it worth. And he bought me some new components. I mean, like I had a new Halbrand steering, and I remember getting all new Halbrand running gear stuff. I mean, like he bought and took whatever it took to make it
right.
What we were hoping to be a competitive car.
Well, after you won that, then Sterner.
After I won the Williams Grove race, then Sterner came on and kind of replenished stuff again. So basically,
made life a little easier.
Basically, my whole deal up here has been, I've been lucky enough to be spending other people's money most of the time to do what I wanted to do.
Which is really what you have to do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
And you didn't travel too much. I mean,
I didn't travel very much. I went occasionally to the Wednesday night shows in Ohio, wherever they raced. And then I remember so many nights I'd go out there and drag out there and something would break or motor break or something would break, and I'd be dragging back and get here at daylight,
long drive,
prepared to start trying to get the motor out and apart and fixed for Williams Grove. Yeah.
Run an Atomic, probably?
You know, I ran an Atomic some, but not much, and not much Fremont. Fremont was pretty high up. The racetrack that I went to in Ohio were, an Atomic may have been one of them. What?
KC now.
KC, but I guess
Buckeye?
Couple of those, but not many. I'm trying to think, where did George Harbor used to run good there with a Reno car, not Portsmouth.
The eastern part?
I was going to say, yes. What's the one, if you go to Columbus, and you go down on 23. I bet it's KC.
Yeah.
But I ran a couple of those with my own car.
Skyline.
I don't think I ran them. But when I ran Ben Cook's car during the Ohio Speedweek, that's actually the biggest race I won. I won the $10,000 finale of Ohio Speedweek when it was in Eldora, but when it was in Zanesville. Do you remember? I mean, I think they still race there occasionally.
Yep. Muskingum County's where
Muskingum.
Yeah. I was there a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was pretty slick, and there was no wall this time. If you went off it, yeah.
I had to go through the dirt.
Oh, you're saying you didn't do. From the outside, a lot of spectators, it's really dusty. I mean, I don't know where you watch Grandview from, but it
wasn't bad the other night.
Where'd you watch it from?
I went between the back stretch and the front stretch.
But from the inside, you watch from the outside. Oh, okay. Was it filthy? Or you wasn't have to pay?
Wasn't too bad.
Okay, well, I mean, that's what you...
Yeah, Knoxville, people wear white, they don't get a speck. You know, Ohio's really bad for dirt, but I don't know how the new fan can stand it. I mean, I don't mind it, because, you know, it's racing. I don't know how a new fan can go and get covered in dirt. That's where we're missing.
I went to a race at Anderson. That's a little 500. It wasn't a little 500. It was an opening show for USAC or whatever. But it was so funny because I went in, up in the state. You've been there, remember? Big nice grandstand around the court. It was just totally clean. I mean, it just asphalt racing like USAC. Well, it was USAC, actually.
Well, dirt's a part of the whole thing.
Well,
if people are getting showered with it, it's just stuff.
Yeah. I would say Grandview generally is pretty dusty from the outside.
That's what I've heard. That's why I wore black.
You're satisfied?
Yeah.
If you're satisfied, you kind of like those stories. Good enough.
That's right. So you think that Zanesville race was your biggest, huh?
Well, I paid $10,000. I mean, that was the biggest race I ever won numerically. I would have to say that winning the Williams Grove National probably will go down and even more notoriety over the years. I mean, anytime you get on the back of the T-shirt, I mean, you'll be on the back of the T-shirt for a long time. There's so many Williams Grove races now that you're like the third row over. But irregardless, I mean, you're still on there. Yeah. And like I say, the stories get better with age. I can't even begin to imagine some of the stories that come about.
There had to be probably 50 plus cars at Mill Street, or at Zanesville.
Are we talking about that for that race?
Yeah. Ohio Speedweek. I mean, you know.
It was the end of Ohio Speedweek. It's funny because that was the year. Remember when Jeff Gordon ran like the Odyssey car? He was there. No, he was in that feature. The rundown. He was in that feature. He was in the back somewhere. He was not a factor. But that was when he was a kid.
Was that 87 or 86? 88.
Earlier. It was 80.
He's 85.
84, 85. Yeah, I believe.
He was
13 or 14. He wasn't old enough. He was not old enough to get a license for the Outlaws, but he was old enough for the All-Stars allowed to run down in Florida that year.
I'm trying to remember when he drove for Bob Trostle in Knoxville the first time, because he had to be 16 there. I think that was 86.
This was, I believe, his own 16.
Right.
Lee Osborne had built. I don't know who was the money. I don't know if it was his dad or stepdad or whatever, but that was that was his first venture into sprint car. That was before he ran Stanton's car,
Right. That's right, and showed some of those cars he ran. He drove for Trostle at Knoxville. Did you run across Bob very much? When he
Did I run
across Bob when he came
Yeah, actually, I drove Trostle's car at Albuquerque the year that, you remember, let me take it. It would have had to been 77 because it's after I won the Williams Grove race here. The races were all over here. And I went back to what was going to be Manzanita, the Western Open.
Right.
And The car that I won Williamsville with, when I pushed it off to warm it up in the pits, it dropped the valve. And the very same motor, talking about luck.
Yeah.
I realized that it had gone through a high heat and cold cycle, but I'm talking the motor that I won.
And elevation and everything.
Well, but I mean starting and stopping.
Oh yeah.
It was the next time the motor actually made any kind of noise after I got through getting paid for winning 150 laps.
Shut down.
It broke a valve too. But I had got to know Trostle pretty good when he was in here and we crossed that. And he allowed, and him and Wolfgang had built a second car to go to Manzanita with. The car that they had won so many.
Right.
You remember it was on the front page of Speedport as this car had won such and such speed. But
Knoxville.
Something like that. But that car, I ran it. When Wolfgang ran the brand new car that they did. This is the night before at Albuquerque, before the Western Open weekend.
Right.
And I ran his second car. Well, what was his second car? They unloaded, they used the new one. And he won. And once again, if I remember, I passed a lot of cars, but I was involved in this accident or that tangle or whatever. So basically all I did was just got pushed off and passed cars and pushed off and passed cars. But I didn't crash it, but that was with the car, the exact car that was so dominant that year.
I thought maybe I found somebody that had not driven for Trostle, but I guess you had.
Well, I drove that car, and that was kind of cool, and it was fast. I mean,
yeah.
But that was the exact car that Wolfie had.
I thought they took all the weight off.
Well, yeah, they'd gone to East Bay the year before, and he won, but he won with a semi-light Trostle. I mean, light compared to the deal. And then they went home and they just made a total weight get rid of it. I mean, like almost stepped up the bar one more time on how light. Well, that was the car. That was the car that I got a chance to run.
That car feel pretty good to you?
Real good.
Yeah.
I ran Bobby Allen's car one time at Hagerstown and won with it too, and it felt real good. I mean, real good. I was like, gee, Bobby, anybody. I mean, like.
So after, did you wind it up after 87, or was that?
What?
Did you wind up after 87, or did you race? That was it.
87. The last I ever set foot with. Now, Weldon Sterner had been my sponsor for many years, and we gathered up all this stuff, the cars and everything. He just allowed me to continue running it with somebody else driving it. And Chuck Reiner ran after that. He was the first guy to run after I was no longer. But at that point, I still had the car at my shop, and I was still involved in the thinking and what I was involved to do. In fact, for whatever reason, I don't remember. I was in line to drive whatever combination we were coming up with. Richard Orbach had the little Debbie guy blended in, but he bought. This guy that was my sponsor bought the Wolfgang car, another dominant car, the dominant car, the one that he won the Nationals and won Knoxville Nationals and the Jackson Nationals and everything. That exact car we had in my shop, and I was supposed to have got to run it, but I got my eye put out, so Chuck was the guy. So actually, I stepped out of. Do you remember when 12 heads first came out? Do you remember anything about numbers or anything?
Yeah.
You remember when the 12 were kind of like this newest state of the art? That was the deal. I had ordered these heads and had them in line, getting them ported and everything. All this was all stacking up for going to be my pile. And then when I got my eye put out, it was not.
That was it, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think that Steve Kinder picked me out and stick it, so I'm going to stick at somebody's wall. I think he just, when they dropped the green, he smeared me, and it was over.
Wouldn't have mattered if you were his kid or anything.
No.
Or his mother.
No, and by his standards, he was probably madder than hell having to start all the way back there in the 6th row. But that's a shame, because that was Ben Cook's car, and that was a very fast race car everywhere I ever went. I mean, I don't believe the clocks lie.
Right.
And that car, I had numerous fast times when they out over here at Williams Grove or I don't even know where else. At Knoxville, for that matter. I mean, for that matter, I forgot about it. Because I remember Ted Johnson was always supposed to pay $100 this or that, and we had a conflict because he said, well, you didn't have your friend particular this or some sort of bullshit, you know. And he wound up, I believe, owing me the money more than paying me the money, but
you weren't the only one he owed.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So he ended up owing you.
You know, he may have paid me. I don't know. It was one of those deals. He don't owe me anymore.
No.
If he did, we're square. Squares we're gonna get.
You're not gonna get it.
It's definitely like. In order to get here fast, I mean, you have to have discount. Some sort of politics, you know. And I may or may not have. I don't know. But that was in Ben Cook's car. And that car was, like I say, it was very fast every time I ever ran it. It was fast. The best I never won an outlaw race. The best I ever ran was second one time to Kinzer when he was so dominant. Sure. But I did that particular race. I did get to pass Wolfgang. I did get to pass Kaufman, and I did get to pass fast guys with Cook's car. It's just the seconds where I wound up at.
When did you pick that ride up that year? Was it halfway through the year? Or?
No, really. I was the first guy in that car.
Oh, okay.
I'm not saying I'm the first guy to ever driven a car built by Ben Cook, but when they made an effort, a house car, so to speak, and they built a light, kick-ass car. I mean, that was a very light car. I was the guy that ran it. And because that time they must have started building my race cars in 78. Because in 77, the year that I won the Israel race with my car, at the start of 78, I was racing my car, and they had wanted to set up some sort of deal where I could run their car, you know, their frame, you know, for me to be kind of like the Ben Cook car over here. And at that time, my car was still good, and I said, well, you know, it sounds like a good idea, but I'm still satisfied with the way everything's going. And then I went up to Lincoln and just destroyed my car, and all of a sudden that deal, yeah, just got it. And from that point on, they built all the race cars that I ever ran with Ben Cook cars. I mean, I never ran anybody else's.
Now those ideas can come to your head. It sounds like a good idea now that we wrecked our car.
Well, I mean, I didn't leave them. I tried not to burn any bridges or try not to make them bad. I mean, they had discussed it and I discussed it, but like I say, at that point, I was satisfied with mine, but then mine got ruined.
Right.
And then I started running the car that they built that ultimately got tore up at Syracuse. That car, it definitely had some bad tubing. I do not believe that they deliberately said, here's a car with bad tubing, we hope if it breaks it doesn't hurt you. But they built a car with some tubing that I believe that they got it through Tobias. I believe it was the same tubing that Tobias had when he got killed, but that could be a way hand-me-down story, but I believe that to be fact. But the tubing was brittle, and that may have been what saved my life, because if you think about, I mean, literally, that's being kind of exaggerating, but if that tubing would have been a little tougher, a little anything, when it was slipping along the wall, something might have held and, you know, changed the whole thing. So it depends.
Caught up.
You know, yeah, so whatever. But the tubing was brittle. If you look at the pictures of the car, you know, where it broke, it didn't break that well. It just broke the tubing.
Did you ever get hurt anywhere in here?
Did I ever get hurt? I got blinded. That kind of hurt. And that ruined the rest of my life, but let me think about it. I got an arm broken at Lincoln, and I got a collarbone broken at Port Royal. That crash that they hauled me off in a helicopter, and everybody, you know, that I was dead. But that was a serious deal. I mean, but I got my collarbone broken and my forearm or something. I don't know. It might have been broken some.
Right. Probably stories about the helicopter too. People tell.
I'm not sure what kind of stories have you heard, and I'll correct it.
No.
Well, the fact for sure, I don't remember anything about the helicopter ride or anything. I see the guy that made tapes gave me a tape of that race and of that wreck and everything, and the footage actually covers it after the fact, like the things. Oh my God, this is happening. Yeah. They don't show the thing happening, but But
Yeah.
when that happened, they have them, and when the helicopter came to land, they had to land in the infield. And you can imagine the drunks in the infield, how much beer cans and stuff would have been there. So he had this blue, I mean, this is stories that have been retold to me about how when the helicopter left, you can imagine it cleaning out the place. But
Just landing right in the infield.
yes, it landed in the infield, and then I sort of don't remember any of it, but I just woke up in Geisinger or something.
You got it in the head pretty good.
No,
Or you just don't
not
remember
really.
it now.
No, I don't remember it, but my head injury wasn't a severe injury. It wasn't like I was out for days or anything. I don't think. I think I regained consciousness there, but like I said, I certainly don't remember that. It's funny because some of the wrecks that I was involved in, they made a big, like Syracuse, the cage got tore off and there were pictures of it and everything. At Port Royal, they hauled me off in a helicopter. Some of those things, and people say, oh, well, he crashed this or crashed that. But overall, out of all of the racing I did,
right,
especially when my car was competitive, I didn't really crash that much at all. And I'm not saying I never crashed. Everybody
that's
does.
what people remember, unfortunately.
But they remember that, and I just say, okay, that's
Better than